Time to get out and vote. All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. The show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards is Chasing Prophecy in the category of Society and Culture. Take a ride down the rabbit hole with Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, and Jason Iampietro, where each episode brings a roundtable approach to conversations about supernatural phenomena, hidden secret societies, underground bunkers, magical conspiracies, the paranormal, cryptic creatures, aliens, ghosts, legends, and myths from around the world. Chasing Prophecy radio program dives into topics that entice the imagination and seduce the mind, some of which are taboo. Chasing Prophecy, where they discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate Chasing Prophecy in the category of Society and Cultures. That's podcastawards.com. Take a moment and get out and vote.
Operators are standing by.
Welcome to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss the unidentified, the unexplainable, paranormal, conspiracies, and much more. Starring your host and co-host, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, and Jason Sledgehammer Iampietro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny Nicasio.
Hey, good evening. Hey, there he is. How you doing, sir? John, good to see you, buddy.
Yep.
Everybody, welcome to Chasing Prophecy. We're on UPRN Radio, 105.3 New Orleans. And tonight's going to be a very interesting show. There's a lot to talk about. But I have to say this, Jenny will not be on tonight because he's sick, and Jason should be on later if he can make it. But Jenny asked me to tell you all about the Kecksburg Festival coming up this weekend. So if you're in Kecksburg, go to the fair and check out the UFO stories and all that good stuff, you know. Hi, Denise. How are you? Is that Denise Pack? Is that your wife? Okay. You have to turn your mic on.
Or unmute it.
There
we
you
go.
go.
Yeah, there we go.
So, John, how was your week?
You talk, yeah, me. My week's fine. I played, I played racquetball 4 days this week, 4 out of 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
And at my age, 65, that was a mistake.
Oh man, I bet you were hurting, huh?
I played the last 2 days. I had to take today off. I see it as the best exercise you can do. I play 3 games. It's about 50 minutes, just under an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't go ride a bike or go walk. It does nothing. It's boring. So
Right.
I play racquetball, but I overdid it. So, but I want the exercise. So I had to take today off, and I think I got to take tomorrow off. Then I'll be back at it.
But you know what, buddy? So this past Saturday, we went up to Crescent. It used to be a tuberculosis hospital, but now it's like extremely haunted, right? And oh my God, we had to walk. I got my exercise in 1 day, like in 5 hours. You know what I mean? It was terrible. You know, the next time I go, I'm going to bring me a golf cart, just like Jason is. Because that was a heck of a lot of running. Lots of money.
The older you get, the guy I play racquetball is 11 years younger than me.
Oh, my gosh.
11 years ago, I won the racquetball tournament, and there's a big difference between 54 and 65. Plus, he's 6'3", his arms go like 7 feet, and he's like a long distance runner. I can't wear him out.
Okay.
And it's so hard to get the ball around him. So even though he wins 90% of the time, I'm there for the exercise. I hate losing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know. It just seems like, can you excuse me one bit? We got to get Michelle in there. I have to send her a message about getting Jason in, I don't know. I'm trying. I'm getting all these things. It's crazy, right? Torture Tuesday. Michelle, if you're listening, can you bring Jason in, please? I appreciate it. But I'm just, wow. I don't know. I'm getting all this Microsoft Edge stuff. But
So-
what I want to talk about, John, is that we later on in the show, much later on in the show, we're going to talk about Kecksburg a little bit. All right, now this is getting ridiculous. Everything's popping up. But so who we have on set on our guest tonight is Ernie, right, Ern?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Anybody.
Ernie. And Ernie is the founder of the Pac-Man Paranormal.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I was talking to a lot of people. Someone mentioned to me that you guys need to get the word out of what's going down there on Waverly Hills. And so here's your time to let it out and tell the whole world what's going on.
All right. Well, I grew up in this neighborhood, just a bike's ride from Waverly Hills in the 80s. It was a big empty building on top of the hill that was run down and a place for teenagers to go and hang out. Nobody heard about it.
You know what that sounds like right now?
What's that?
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I mean, the abandoned building, the bike hits on the bikes. It sounds like the opening of Stranger Things.
Well, that was kind of my teenage years. That's kind of how it went. But the building was forgotten. It was not known in the paranormal community or anything. If you didn't live in this neighborhood, you didn't know anything about it. In 2001, Charlie and Tina Mattingly bought the building, cleaned it up, got it open for tours and investigations, and it quickly rose to the top of pretty much any paranormal investigator's bucket list location, thanks to being on shows like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, you name it. Every paranormal TV show that's ever had a season has at least had one episode at Waverly Hills. Most of them have been there multiple times. And it's a really active location. But Charlie and Tina, when they bought it for pennies on the dollar, basically the back taxes that were owed on the building is what they got it for. They weren't rich people. They're still not today, because every penny they were bringing into the building, they were using to restore the building. They put a nonprofit in place to run the business of the building, and that was working fine for 20 years. They put people that they could trust on the board, that they knew that were doing the right thing with it. Well, over time, people would retire or quit or die or whatever, and there'd be an opening on the board. Well, each time there was an opening on the board, that person would be replaced by someone who was part of a little inner circle that basically centers around Renee Clark, who's the president of the board now. And they eventually got enough votes that they voted Tina Mattingly, one of the owners, the redheaded lady that you've seen on all the paranormal shows, they voted her out as executive director. Tina and Charlie lived in an apartment there on the property, inside the building, actually, that Charlie had built. They kicked them out of their home and told them that they weren't allowed back on the property. This was back during COVID. Tina and Charlie both very sick. They got out. They thought, well, we can work this out down the road when we're feeling better. They didn't want to deal with all the stress and everything, given their health circumstances. Well, by the time Charlie's ready to talk to him to try to negotiate a way to, work out whatever issues they had, they filed a lawsuit against Charlie, claiming everything from misuse of funds brought in by the building to not using historically accurate windows when he was restoring the building, which he didn't have to. It was his building. He was not taking government grant money or anything like that. It was his building to do with what he wanted. If he wanted to bulldoze it, he could have. It's his building. But they filed a lawsuit claiming all these things against him. And they told him, if you just sign the building over to us, we'll make it all go away. Now, Charlie and Tina had to move out of the home they had into another home that they'd owned. They used to rent out, but it had pipes bust and it really wasn't livable at the time. So Charlie had to hustle and make it livable for them to move into. They had no money for an attorney or anything. And so I was working at Waverly Hills. They had called me. I had been there in the past as a host for the overnight investigations and security and tour guide. I'd done a little bit of everything up there over the years. And after they kicked Tina and Charlie out, I wasn't clued in on what exactly was going on, but the Historical Society contacted me and asked me if I'd come back and help run the overnight investigations and help with the tours and everything. And I was more than happy to. I got a long personal history with the building that, it's where I met my wife. Room 502 up there. Famous story of Waverly Hills is a nurse found hanging outside of room 502. Well,
You married the nurse?
I married a nurse. Yes, I did marry a nurse.
That
but not
nurse.
Whoa, hello.
Hey, hold on. Hey, Jason, welcome.
Hey, welcome to Torture Tuesday.
Yes.
I finally got through.
Yes. Jason, this is Ernie from Waverly Hills.
Ernie, how you doing? Is Bert around by chance?
No, he's not. He's
No, I'm
not.
just
And
kidding.
I've never heard that before, Jason. That's a totally new one. But no, he's not around.
Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to try to spread the word about this because a lot of people just don't know what's going on.
I'm one of those people. I want to know as much as possible.
Well, if I know you were backstage, hopefully you heard what I was saying earlier. I was working at Waverly Hills. Like I said, I brought a large group of people, paranormal investigators, some of whom had been tour guides at another very haunted location, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. I brought all them in. We kind of revamped how the tours and investigations were being done at the time, and things were going great until we started asking questions about what was really going on with this lawsuit and Tina and Charlie. And they didn't like that. They didn't like being questioned about it. We were told to tell any guests that asked where Tina and Charlie were that they had retired to spend more time with their grandkids. Well, come to find out, no, Tina had been fired and they had been told to get off the property that they own.
That's
and
crazy.
that's where, it started raising red flags to me. They own the property. How can you tell them they can't be here?
Right.
Yeah, really.
So when we started asking these questions, they started telling us how to do our tours and investigations. Now, they're not paranormal investigators. And they're telling us how to run a paranormal investigation. And just a lot of things that they started doing was rubbing us the wrong way. And eventually it got to a breaking point where I quit. And within a matter of a week, 13 other people had quit along with me, including my wife, Denise, Todd and Leanne Eskew, and Beth Allen, who had come up from Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, several other volunteers and guides and stuff that had come along with us, left with us. At that time, I reached out to Charlie Mattingly. I said, hey, man, I've been fed a bunch of bull about what's going on. I want to know the truth. And he said, well, I'd be glad to tell you the truth because this is killing me. And so we sat down and we talked. And he was able to show me some documentation to support his side, whereas everything they had said was just words. And I decided then that we needed to form Save Waverly Hills. We formed a Facebook group called Save Waverly Hills. A website was created, not by us, although I've been sued because supposedly it's my website. It's not my website.
Why would they sue you?
Because they're claiming that there's defamation on that website because we're telling the truth.
Oh,
We
gotta
show
love
actual
that.
documentation to back up everything that we say, and they're claiming that's defamation. If the truth is defamation to you, then maybe you need to change the way you're living is all I can say to them. But anyway, we formed this, the Facebook group, the webpage got started, and we're doing all sorts of fundraising efforts and informational efforts to get the word out about what's really going on, raise funds for Charlie and Tina to help fight this in court, because court battles are very expensive. This one's been going on for a year, and Charlie's put probably, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'd say it's probably close to $100,000
Wow.
into legal fees by now. And there's still more to come because they keep filing for extensions or delays on the court proceedings. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I had a lawsuit against someone that was a legitimate lawsuit that I really thought I could win, I'd be anxious to get it into the courtroom.
Right.
Yeah, get it on and get it over
if
with.
the end goal of it is to have Waverly Hills as mine. Well, they don't want to do that. They keep stalling and delaying. They have actually done some things up there now that is a lease violation because Charlie leases the building to them. They've done several things that were lease violations where they did unpermitted electrical work, where they didn't get the proper permits through the city and things like that to do certain electrical work, code violations, fire code violations, all these things, which amount to lease violations. So Charlie filed an eviction. We were supposed to be in court yesterday for that eviction. And their attorney said, "Oh, I'm going to be on vacation. I can't do it." Now, she works for a huge law firm that boasts on their website that they've got like 2,500 attorneys. But because she's on vacation, the eviction case has been put off now, and we're still waiting for another date on that.
Is she on vacation or is she just pulling, like the wool over your eyes?
What's that?
Is she
I don't know if she's on vacation. I don't know if she's actually on vacation or not.
I'd be looking at that.
Yeah.
Ernie, you know what the shame is? They should have never moved out because during COVID, they had passed something that you can't evict anybody.
Right. Well, they didn't have the power to evict them in the first place.
Right. And plus, during COVID, nobody could get evicted. That's what the president said.
Exactly. But Charlie, Tina and Charlie, like I said, were both very, very sick. Tina had just gotten back from the Cleveland Clinic where she had spent some 40 days or so in ICU, where there were many times we didn't think she was going to make it. And, as soon as she comes back from the Cleveland Clinic, that's when they fired her as executive director and tell them they got to get out of their home. Charlie needs a heart transplant. They're both in really bad health. He figured that rather than stay there and fight with them, it'd be better to pull her and him both aside from that situation, let things settle down, let them get their health back a little bit, and then go to them and say, "Hey, what can we do to fix this?"
When is the lease up?
It's a 99-year lease.
Oh, geez.
So they've still got like 90 years left on that. But the eviction is legit, and we should get the eviction through if it ever gets in front of a judge. Every legal person that we've talked to, lawyers, former judges, you name it, says there's no way they can win the lawsuit, but it's got to get in front of a judge. And they keep stalling, hoping that Charlie either runs out of money or him and Tina die, and then they win. So that's why we formed Save Waverly Hills, to make sure that they don't run out of money.
I mean, for them, they want to take control of the place, but I mean, what's it worth? And, to run tours, I mean, how much money does it generate? Is it even worth their while?
They have over $4 million in assets right now.
It's worth their while.
The building not counting the building. I'm talking bank accounts and properties and stuff, because Charlie actually bought a big chunk of property that borders the Waverly Hills property and signed it over to them. But the building brings in easily $1.5 million a year.
Wow. If
we have a good year with the haunted house, it can bring in twice that.
Wow.
It stays booked every night. It's $1,000 a night overnight. It's booked every night for overnights. Weekends, they do public overnights and 2-hour tours. on Fridays and Saturdays, and that's like $25,000 a weekend
Man.
that it brings in right there. So it brings in a lot of money. And then the haunted house is one of the most popular haunted houses in the country. I mean, we run, I don't know, 1,000 people or more through there a night.
Where is it located?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Where?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, Louisville, right near UPS, huh?
Yeah. Actually, the UPS planes flying over the building, landing at night, drive us nuts.
What can Brown do for you?
And,
that's there.
UPS
that's UPS's air hub in Louisville.
Yes.
I know that.
So, what your group members? What have you been doing trying to make things work down here?
Well, we've done everything from organized fundraisers, everything from car shows to poker runs for motorcycles to we had Brandon Alvis and Mustafa Gadalari that we did a meet and greet and ghost hunt with at the Old Stone Jail down in Franklin, Kentucky. We've done investigations at the Roz Opera House in Cynthiana, Kentucky, which that's a great location too, if you guys haven't heard of it. To raffles, Charlie's actually raffling off his personal Harley, his personal convertible T-Bird, anything we can do to raise funds to keep fighting this. We've got merchandise like these shirts. We've got several different styles of shirts that you can only find on our website that we're selling. Anything we can do to raise funds right now. Mm-hmm. And mainly we're spreading, other locations have been donating their spaces, like a night at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital or Wildwood Sanitarium. Several places have donated nights for us to raffle off or auction off to raise funds. It's been a huge, wave of support from across the paranormal community from around the world, really. Mm-hmm. People, sending their support, helping us spread the message and get the word out about what's actually going on. Because a lot of people are still booking Waverly right now. They just don't know what's going on. They don't know that their money that they're paying, instead of going to restore the building, it's going straight to an attorney's firm to try to steal the building.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Why don't you
They have literally budgeted $25,000 a month for legal fees.
Wow.
I don't know that they're spending $25,000 a month, but that's what their board voted to authorize, $25,000 a month in legal fees. And
why don't you see if you can contact the Unexplained TV series with William Shatner? I know he covers things like that. He might cover this for you.
Shoot me some contact information. I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah, I don't have it, but I know that if Shatner hears about stories, they put it on the Unexplained TV series.
Yeah, that would be something worth looking into, definitely. I mean, we've been on numerous podcasts like this and radio programs, and we're looking any way we can to get the word out about this. And I can't fault people that don't know about what's going on at Waverly for going up there and booking and paying their money, but there's a lot of people that do know about what's going on and they're still paying and going up there. And quite frankly, that pisses me off. Excuse my language, but it's there's what's legal and what you can get by with in a court of law, and there's right and wrong. And for an elderly couple, and they're going to kick my ass for saying elderly, but for an older couple to be kicked out of their home and have everything they've worked for the last 20 years taken from them by people who don't have any legitimate claim to that is just wrong. It's just wrong. I mean,
Have you talked to a congressman or any official down there?
I have a lot of contacts in local politics, and what I usually hear from them is that since there's a lawsuit that's already going on, they don't want to get their nose in the middle of it. Let the courts deal with it.
What do you think of that, John?
Well, that's about typical. I was saying to myself, because I've run for a few positions, that governor and county commissioner, that politicians are really disgraceful, especially here in Pennsylvania. They have no backbone, and they give in to the other side all the time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything
Well,
to
I mean,
ask, Jason?
I'm just trying to take in everything that's going on with the Waverly Hills at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot, and it's hard
Yeah.
for a lot of people to believe that it could even get to this point. But I mean, the lawsuit is around here somewhere because I'm named in it.
Who is
I mean,
who is the heir to Waverly Hills if that couple passes away eventually?
It would go to their children.
Okay.
They've got a son and a daughter. It would go to their children, rightfully. But if this legal battle is still going on, we don't know how that's going to play out.
Well, they can't sign it over to just end the stress. They can't give them something that's worth $4 or $5 million.
Right? They can't. This right here is the lawsuit.
Holy moly.
Shit. Holy
It's like-
God
it's like-
almighty.
It's like signing for a house.
Damn.
It is ridiculous. And there's nothing. We have asked them for discovery on this, on all of their claims since January 6th. Give us some proof. Give us something to prove what you're saying in here. They've offered none. Every time they go back to the courtroom, they throw out some more claims to get another extension. They say, well, we've got more claims now, so we can't give you discovery yet. And the lawsuit's on the WHHS website. And if you go to the WHHS website and read the lawsuit, and then go to the WHHS website and watch their little video that they did, you can see that their little video is nothing but lies. I mean, there's nothing in the lawsuit that they have been able to support with any documentation, because we've been asking for it since January 6th. They still haven't come up with it.
Well, you either need a different lawyer or ask for a different judge. I mean, you would think just common sense, a judge would step in at some point and say, let's get this
Enough
over
is
with.
enough.
But, in the legal field, they all make money by delaying, and the judges were attorneys, so they know the game. Everybody makes money except you.
Exactly. Yeah. Charlie and Tina are just shelling out money. I mean, they just keep putting money out. And every day that goes by, the WHHS is pocketing at least $1,000 a day from tours and investigations, because the building sells itself,
Okay.
I mean,
Excuse me. This Rye Thomas, if 90 days go by without any progress, the lawsuit can be dismissed for lack of progress. So just keep an eye on that.
Well, that's what they keep doing, Rye. I agree. And our attorneys know that. But what they do is every time they come up against a deadline like that, they'll just add more claims, and they call that progress.
Like a loophole.
What type of claims, when you say claims, what type of claims are they adding?
Okay, like shoddy workmanship. That, like the parking lot that we've used for 20 years is unsafe due to Charlie's shoddy workmanship in constructing it.
Oh, they're just shooting in the dark at this point.
Charlie has an excavator that's up there. That's his excavator that he used back when he first got the building and was using it to dig out the crap that was in the building. They're claiming it's theirs now. And when Charlie goes up there to use, because he's still doing work on the lower part of the property that they don't have a lease on, he goes up there to use that excavator. They file another claim. Improper use of WHHS equipment.
Or just
Unauthorized use.
he should just move it to his property. That's what he should do with it.
Well, I mean, I think that's where it's sitting now. But
Yeah.
still, they're claiming it's theirs.
Denise
And-
says that stolen cabinets from their apartment that Charlie built himself.
Yeah. Remember I told you they got kicked out of their own apartment that Charlie had built inside the building. He built cabinets in there. Well, the house that they were forced to move into after the water damage and everything, and then they were kicked out of Waverly, because of the water damage, the cabinets in there were destroyed. So Charlie took the cabinets out of the apartment at Waverly and put them in that new house. Or not new house, that other house. And they're claiming he stole them.
Jeez.
Wow.
It's his building. He
It
owns
makes-
it.
It makes you not want to get involved with other people. You know?
Exactly.
Wow.
Charlie's
I mean-
only mistake in all this has been trusting people
Yeah.
and not thinking that someone would try to take something from him like that.
But that's
People that he knew, and because
Yeah.
I mean, these are people that we would have Christmas parties up there, and they'd be hugging and kissing and telling Tina and Charlie how much they loved them and we're all family and blah blah blah. And then as soon as they get enough votes on the board to vote Tina out, they did so, and then tried to take the whole dang place from them.
Well, they say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So obviously they were trying to play the game, it sounds like.
That's a hostile takeover.
That's exactly what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah. Now, is there? You were saying that your local politicians don't want nothing to do with it. Is it then possible that you can go up further, like to the state, to see what they can do about it?
We have tried to get with the Secretary of State on this because they're not functioning. There are rules on how nonprofits are supposed to operate as far as financial disclosures and there's a lot of rules that they are not following. We're trying to find out exactly how much money they're spending on everything. We're trying to get financial disclosures from them. We know how much the executive director is making, which, by the way, the executive director was appointed by his wife, Renee Clark, the president. She appointed an executive director to a salaried position of $117,000 a year.
Wow.
For what is basically a part-time job. Now, his qualifications to be executive director of Waverly Hills are that he's a former tour guide at Waverly Hills, and he's worked behind the parts counter of a car dealership.
Oh, perfect.
Never done any
credentials.
building management, never ran a nonprofit, never been a business manager, knows nothing about property management or anything like that, which is obvious. I mean, hence the code violations and unpermitted work that they did in the building.
Have you tried to go to the media and try to get
The
some
media has
attention?
been all over this, trying to get in touch with us. At this point, our attorneys are telling us not to say anything that's not already a matter of public record, because a big portion of the lawsuit's under gag orders from the court.
Oh.
So it's tough for us to say a whole lot to the media. I mean, we tell them basically some of the same things I'm able to tell you, but they want to know more.
Well, you could stage
can't do them.
protests there. You could stage some sort of protest and then tell the media to show up, and you'll get some
We've
coverage
been doing that.
of what's going on.
We have been protesting at the gate, and we've had media there during our protests. And,
They have Antifa and BLM for those type of things.
well,
You know what? I got a
we won't go
question.
there.
I got a question from Rye to you, Ernie.
Okay.
Did anything come out of examining the lease agreement and seeing if the lease could be broken?
Well, right. The only way the lease can be broken, according to the attorneys, when they did the review on it, is if the WHHS has clear, substantiated lease violations. And we've got those. And so we have filed an eviction. They've been served an eviction that was served June the 28th. Now, technically, you've got 30 days from that to get out or get a successful appeal to the eviction through the
it's
courts.
coming up on the deadline.
Well, we were supposed to go to court for that yesterday. They filed an extension.
Uh-oh.
The court granted it. So now, until we go to court, we can't kick them out. And we're still waiting to find out when we can go to court.
Do you know how many extensions they can put on something like that?
According to the attorneys, they'll usually grant one.
Wow.
Okay.
On an eviction.
Now, is that extension like another 30 days or 60 days or?
Well, it's just if the court date comes after the 30 days, it's until the court date.
Okay.
The person
It's not a finite amount of time. It's just, it depends on when it actually goes to court.
The woman trying to take this thing over, what does she do for a living?
She's an accountant.
Okay.
She sees how much money is made.
Yeah.
And you know who makes money with big businesses or businesses that bring in millions of dollars a year? The people that make the money at those places are the accountants and the lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's what's happening here.
Now, what? And I know this is going to be a dumbass question, but
It's okay, Pep.
But how did it claim to become a historical place? I mean, someone come in and say, yeah, it's been here this long and it happened here and this happened there, so it's historical? Because there was a friend of mine who had a house over there by, I forget, but he needed all kinds of proof that it had to be historical, and it was just a house. And they ran him through the ringer, you know what I mean? So who came in and said this is historical?
Waverly was put on the National Registry of Historic Places back in the 80s.
Okay.
It was, if you don't know what Waverly Hills was, it was the premier tuberculosis hospital in the world at the time that it opened in 1926. It had an incredible reputation for innovations in treatment and things like that during the tuberculosis epidemic around the turn of the century. It started as a tuberculosis hospital in 1910, but the building that you see now was built they started construction in 1924. It opened in 1926. And it's a massive place. It's a 187,000 square foot facility that had a 400 bed capacity. Sometimes there'd be 2 or almost 3 times that many patients in the building because this area was particularly hard hit by the tuberculosis epidemic. So it didn't have to jump through a lot of hoops to get placed on the National Registry of Historic Places just because of its, actual historical significance, not only to this area, but to the world.
What was one or two of the most famous cases there? What makes it, people want to go there? Any famous sightings or anything that took place?
Well, I think the thing that, you guys might agree with me on this. There are a lot of us who were paranormal investigators long before the TV show Ghost Hunters came on TV. But we kind of kept ourselves quiet about it because you were looked at like you had 2 heads if you told people you were a paranormal investigator before Ghost Hunters came out. Now you still kind of get that sometimes, but
Right.
There weren't 63,000 deaths there, Brandon. We'll talk about that here shortly. But Ghost Hunters kind of put paranormal investigating on the map, brought us out of the dark, so to speak. You're not kind of as much of a weirdo if you're a ghost hunter as what you might have been before that show. Well, their number 1 watched episode ever was the first episode they filmed at Waverly Hills. they caught a thermal image of a shadow figure running across the hallway. And that episode is what put Waverly Hills on the map with the paranormal community. That is what, like I say, it's the number one watched episode of any paranormal show ever. So it put Waverly on the map. It put ghost hunting on the map. And Waverly quickly skyrocketed to the top of everybody's bucket list, or near the top. But there's so many hauntings there, so many stories. People talk about, one of the things you'll hear about is a little boy named Timmy that plays with the ball. For one, Waverly is an open air facility. There's no windows on the backside of Waverly Hills. The building was designed to catch air and move air through the corridors because fresh air treatment was one of the number one treatments they had for tuberculosis back in the day. So the building is designed to catch air and move it. So you see people all the time going to Waverly and they'll put a ball down in the hallway and the ball will move. And they're like, oh, it's Timmy playing with the ball.
It's the air rolling through.
No, you're at Waverly Hills. Go to one of the rooms, though, that is sealed up, like the cafeteria or somewhere like that, where you've got windows and you've got doors and everything, and you can get away from that. You can still get that ball to move.
Oh, wow.
It's not Timmy. People always say Timmy. There was a sketchy EVP that was caught one time where people said, "What's your name?" And it was like, and they're like, "Oh, Timmy." Now Timmy is a famous ghost at Waverly, but
that sound was about right.
Ever a Timmy there. There were a lot of children there. Probably was one named Timmy, but when I always told people on tours and investigations when they come to Waverly, that there's a lot of children's spirits here. If you want to play ball with one of them, go to a room where it's actually sealed up and say, are there any children that want to play ball? You might have some luck. Because if you go in there and you sit down and you say, come on, Timmy, let's play ball. What if little Jimmy or Johnny or Sally or Mary wants to play ball?
Or Sean or John.
Their turn, and you're not going to get anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I don't know. It's it cracks me up when people talk about Timmy, because.
Well, thanks for the clarification for that. So that we know for future reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about what was your best experience you had there?
Meeting my wife there.
Besides meeting the wife. Well, yeah, I know you had to say that, right?
Yeah, she's watching. I had to say that.
502. People keep saying 502.
Yes, I'll talk about 502 here. You see this. She's got one of these too.
Okay.
Hers says 205.
No.
Jeez.
But the craziest thing, I guess, that I've ever seen was a flashlight that levitated in the hallway. I had a group in there that I used to always, and I know a lot of people don't like flashlight communication. I know that those flashlights will cycle on and off over time through heat cycles. But when you're getting on-command responses with flashlight, that's different.
I agree. I actually had the same thing in the past.
Yes. Well, I used to end my walkthroughs with investigative teams by saying, if there's anyone here that would like to communicate tonight, I got some folks in the building that are wanting to experience you and talk to you. So if there's anybody here, can you turn the light on for us and let us know? Well, the light came on. And, this guy is like, oh, you're not impressing me with this flashlight crap, whatever. I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. Go back to New Jersey.
You see my light going brighter and stuff?
Yeah, I saw it.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
I did see that.
Keep an eye out for it, because this happens when I'm on shows.
All right, then.
You should probably get an electrician in there, John.
Or a different light bulb.
There you go.
Your idea just burned out.
But so it, later on in the night, they came and got me, and they said, hey, we thought we saw somebody down at the end of the hallway. and we were hearing voices down there. So I took my flashlight. This girl, she said, I took my flashlight down there and set it outside the room, and we're asking them to come on, asking them if they could turn it on, and nothing happened. I said, well, do you mind if I try? I mean, they kind of know me here. I'm here a lot. And she was like, yeah, please. So I walked down there and I said, my friends here said that they thought they heard you. If you're here, can you turn the light on? Well, the light came on. And here goes this dude again. Here we go again with the flashlight. And I'm like, dude, it's her flashlight. I haven't gotten within 50 feet of it. It hasn't come on the whole time. And then as soon as I ask it to, it comes on. And he's like, well, whatever. You know, you're not going to impress me with this. You're going to have to do something better than that. I said, my friend here is not impressed with you turning the light on. Is there something else you can do to let him know it's you and not me? And the light went up off the floor and then fell back to the floor. And I'm like
fair enough.
Some of that, dude.
Damn. How about that happened to us down at the Bel Air House when you and was it Roy down in the cellar?
No, that was me and Augie.
You and Augie. Tell them what happened, bud.
Yeah, me and Augie, one of our other investigators, we were down in the basement of the Bel Air house, and that's where the portal is, and it's crazy, and it's a whole long story, but we didn't know that a previous paranormal group had left a flashlight on the one side of the basement wall, and we're on the other side of the wall, and I have surveillance cameras set up, so it caught everything. So we're there just doing an EVP session, and, you know, just trying to look for K2 hits and stuff. And then when we left that room, we saw that there was this flashlight on the table. And we're like, well, I was like, did you put that there? He's like, no, did you? I was like, no. So we went back and looked at the security footage from my cameras I had set up. And while we were doing our EVP, you hear the light click and turn on right in the middle of our session, just out of nowhere. So I actually got a hold of the paranormal group that owned the flashlight because they had their sticker on it. I was like, hey guys, you know, just wanted to touch base, you know, from the Bel Air house, you know, we found like your flashlight and this and that. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. You know, you can have it, consider it a gift or whatever. I'm like, that's cool. I was like, if you guys like have it, like how long ago were you here or whatever? And it was a while, you know, it was a few months since they were there and they totally forgot it was there. And I was like, yeah, that thing just turned on and I got the footage and they were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, you know, and it was just really cool just to, you hear it click and turn on.
Yeah.
You know, there's no other explanation.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
yeah,
pretty.
It's awesome when it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had some communication with flashlights like that you cannot tell me is a heat cycle.
Right.
You know, I mean, the flashlight will be laying there for a half hour when you're not even thinking. You know, you set the light on the floor and you know you start looking at REM pods or millimeters or something else, you know,
right,
and they say, well, can you turn that flashlight on over there? And the flashlight come on immediately. Thank you, you can turn it off, and it goes off. And you know, I mean, you can't tell me that's a heat cycle when it's been, you know,
I definitely agree with you, you know, because there's you know, I've used the little mag lights with the incandescent bulbs, which is the best to use, they say, because the LEDs just don't quite work as well. And there was a couple times where I am thoroughly convinced that it was responses from something paranormal because, you know, like you said, you could tell, you could kind of almost time like heat cycles almost,
right.
You know, if you leave it sit there long enough, you kind of realize where it is. But when it lights up on command, you know, back to back to back or off. And you know, I feel like that's an easier way for an entity to communicate because they're getting the energy from the batteries or whatever else.
Yeah. And it doesn't take a whole lot to manipulate that.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So I agree.
I
with
mean,
that.
they don't have hands, you know, so they need to use the energy in some way. And that's why we use things that measure energy primarily. And it's real easy to get the energy that's needed there. I was asked to talk about room 502. Daniel James mentioned 502. Denise said it. The light came about probably 18 inches off the floor.
Oh my.
Damn.
Good foot and a half. That's impressive.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody was just like, oh, I was like that. Okay. But I had an attitude toward the smart aleck over there. So I had to play it off, and I was like, "Get you some of that," you know. But really, inside, I was like, "Oh my God, that just happened." You know?
I would have told that guy that if you keep it up, that spirit's going home with you.
Yeah.
Do we know possibly who that spirit is that did that, or is it just we're not
I really
sure?
don't.
Okay.
I know the area of the building. We have that was on the second floor, which was the ladies' floor for most of the time that Waverly was open. But there's so many spirits at Waverly. I mean, so many. I mean, people talk, you know, there's a lot of haunted locations where they say, "Oh, we've got Mary Sue in the attic and JoJo in the basement."
Right.
At Waverly, you've got pages. You know, I mean, there's just so many that it's hard to narrow down.
All of them named Timmy.
Yeah, all of them are named
Timmy's the general name at Waverly.
Oh my
But
God.
room
502?
502, if you guys have heard anything about Waverly Hills, you've probably heard about the nurse who was found hanging outside of room 502. The story that's been told forever about her is that it's a hearsay story that was passed down for years and years and told to Tina and Charlie by a guy who's a former employee at Waverly, who claimed that one of his relatives actually helped cut the body down. Now, there's no documentation for it, all just word of mouth. But what he said was that this nurse had been having an affair with a married doctor, that she'd gotten pregnant, contracted TB, thought that maybe she couldn't handle a pregnancy and fight the disease at the same time. So she thought it was best to have an abortion. The child was aborted, flushed down the toilet of room 502, which is a bathroom.
Ooh.
And then she hung herself outside of room 502.
Wow.
That's the story. I mean, you can go to websites all over the world and they'll tell you that story. Well, that story never made a lick of sense to me for a lot of reasons. One, the fifth floor housed the sickest of sick children back at that time. And in the other ward, there are two wards on the fifth floor. One ward had children. The other ward had patients with tubercular meningitis, which is basically TB of the brain.
Oh, wow.
And like common meningitis, it mostly affected young adults and children, teenagers to up to the early 20s. So those were all young people too that were in really bad health. They were treated with electroshock therapy. Hello, T-Dog. Good to see you in here. So if you were an employee of Waverly Hills back then, you were basically quarantined on the hill yourself. You had to live there in the dormitories on the property. You cannot go out and mingle with the rest of society because they thought you might spread the disease. Nurses back then in the 30s, when we think this happened, were lucky to make $25 a week.
Jeez.
They were disrespected. They were not treated like nurses today. And even, you know, you go up, fast forward to like after World War II, nurses were finally revered as heroes. I think the war kind of changed all that. I don't know. But prior to then, that was a low-class job to have, really. And so if you took a job up there as a nurse, you must really care about the people that you're helping and the work that you're doing, right? Because there's a good chance you could catch tuberculosis yourself and die for not much money and being disrespected and all that stuff. So you had to really care about the job you had. It never made sense to me that a woman who took that job would hang herself in front of, in plain view of, her two most precious and vulnerable classes of patients like that. Because if you look at where she was found hanging, supposedly, I mean, it's right outside the ward where the patients with tubercular meningitis were at, and the children's ward is right across from it. So that just never made sense to me.
Well,
There's a lot more reasons behind it too, but I'm trying to shorten this for the show.
Well, why would she commit suicide? Why would she have an abortion and then commit suicide. You might as well commit suicide
That's
and
what I'm
take
saying.
your vote.
A lot of that story just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But anyway, that was a story that was always told. I used to tell it on the tours because that was what was basically in the script for a guide. But it never made sense to me. So every chance I had, I'd go up there and try to communicate with that nurse and find out her story. And over time, I got her story.
Oh.
First time I ever communicated with her, I had a group up there. I had told the other story and turned them loose in the building. They came and got me and said, "Hey, we're not having a whole lot of luck. You want to come up here and help us out?" I was like, "Sure." They were up outside of room 502. They had all their equipment laid out there on the floor under where she had been found hanging. And they were asking questions like, "Why did you kill your baby? Who was the doctor you were sleeping with? Did you know his wife?"
Jeez.
Things like that.
Oh, my.
And I'm sitting there looking at them and I'm like, I'm feeling bad because that's the story I had just told. And I'm thinking, what if this is not the real story? So I said, "Guys, you mind if I chime in?" They were like, "No, sure. That's why we brought you up here." So I sat down against the elevator door and I said, "Hey, my name is Ernie. I'm going to be spending a lot of time up here with you. And I want to make sure that I'm telling your story. But you got to help me. If you help me by telling me your story, I promise I'll tell it to everybody I meet in here. Everybody I get a chance to tell it to. But you got to help. Can you just tell me your name?" And right then, a little tiny female voice from outside of room 504, just right next door to 502, said, "Sarah."
Oh.
And there were me and 3 guys, the only people in the building at the time. And we all about crapped our pants. You know, when you ask a question, you know how disembodied voice it. You know, if you ask a question, you're waiting for something to light up or maybe be picked up on a EVP you can listen to later.
Yeah.
But when a disembodied voice from 15 feet away gives you a direct answer,
That's even better.
I mean, that's awesome. So every night after that, I started going up there and having conversations with Sarah. Every chance I had, I'd have a conversation with Sarah and ask her this or that. And if based on whether or not I got responses, I'd come back and add to the story. Ask a little more in-depth question. Over time, I had put together a whole other story about what had happened with Sarah. And other teams, that would come in there to investigate would tell me what they had gotten. So on June 20th of 2019, this lady comes to Waverly Hills with her three of her daughters and a bunch of friends. And I'm giving them their walkthrough before their investigation. And I told the other story. And I said, but I've kind of pieced together a whole other story about what might have happened that night. If you'd like me to tell it. And this is the first time I'd ever done that. If you'd like me to tell you what I think really happened to Sarah, I'd be happy to. And they said, sure, go ahead. So I told Sarah's story. And when I'm telling it, I noticed that the mother of these girls is standing there nodding her head going, yep, yep, yep. And I'm like, okay. So I get done with the tour and I said, I noticed that when I was telling Sarah's story, you seemed to know what I was talking about. And she said, well, I've been coming here since 2009. I had first started working there. The first time I went up there to work was around 2009. And, but I'd never met this lady. But she'd been coming since 2009, sometimes twice a year. And she's a nurse. So she had always been curious about that story too. And she had been getting the same information on her investigations that I shared when I told Sarah's story. So her and I started talking a lot and investigating that story even further. And to make a long story short, all because of Sarah, Denise and I are now married.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's
I just
awesome.
I got chills for that. Oh, wow. Dang.
But I mean, it's so weird how it all pieced together. I think Sarah kind of had a hand in it. It's weird. I mean,
Are you able to enlighten us with Sarah's story that you picked up on the air?
Yeah.
I'm really curious.
Like now. I say, okay, after Denise and I got together, we formed Pac-Man Paranormal. we started doing a podcast on Paranormal Warehouse back when it was big on podcasts, and we had one of the most popular shows on Paranormal Warehouse. We'd have 15,000 views a week on Paranormal Warehouse, which was a lot for them. And we would tell Sarah's story from time to time. Well, people from all over the world would send us messages and say, hey, we got this, we got that. And they would help us add to what we had, already put together. So this story has been put together over the course of about 13 years now with about 30 different paranormal teams from all over the world. And it's used, it's all based on paranormal evidence. Can't be proven. We're looking for anything we can to document any of it. But it makes a lot more sense than the other story. Sarah said that she had an older sister that she adored that had died at the age of 15 from tuberculosis. That led Sarah to want to be a nurse and work with children who had TB. Sarah was the runt of the family. She became a nurse at the age of 22, went to work at Waverly Hills. Because she was very small, very soft-spoken, they put her on the 5th floor working with those really sick kids because they thought the kids would relate better to someone like her because she was looked like a kid, sounded like a kid herself. She was there for 3 years on the night shift. One night she's alone in room 504 when another staff member must have come up the steps because she never heard the bell. For a long time, I was getting EVPs where she would say, no bell, no bell. And I'm thinking Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. I couldn't put it together.
Yeah.
Finally, the elevator had a bell. She never heard the bell. So, I would ask her then, did you mean he must have used the elevator? And then, you'd get a response. Yes. It's like, okay, I got it. So this is how it was pieced together over time. But anyway, he comes up the steps, comes in the room behind her. He attacks her. She tried to fight back, but she didn't want to wake the kids. She didn't scream. She was too little. He was too strong. He got what he wanted.
Oh,
she was a virgin until that night.
Wow.
That's horrible.
Somewhere in the process, he hurt my neck. We've gotten that over and over again on EVPs. Hurt my neck. And they lied.
Oh,
Help me.
I
Help
see.
me. Help me. That story makes way more sense than the other story. Because remember back what I was telling you. If you worked at Waverly Hills, you were confined to Waverly Hills. If you're a sexual predator, which had been around since the beginning of time, you get a job at Waverly Hills, let's say as an orderly, which is who we think did this. Where's your pool of victims going to come from? The light
Right.
brightens
The
up.
light.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes
time was
sense.
like,
That being
Your
the
pool of
truth.
victims comes from the hill. The perfect victim is that tiny little nurse working alone on the night shift up there with the only witnesses being really sick kids that probably aren't going to make it anyway.
And
Sarah
that
was
would make
not
sense
an
why
adulterer.
there's no documentation for the cover-up because the
Yeah.
cover-up was a cover-up.
Exactly. And the other story,
Makes more sense.
a
Yeah.
cover-up. Yeah. The abortion story, like Denise says, covers up the rape of a virgin because they say when she was found, she had blood dripping from her toes and running down from her from her private area. So they said, oh, she must have had an abortion. Well, a virgin who's raped, you might have the same kind of things.
there was no abortion.
So,
That's pretty heavy.
So with the very first story, did you change the story to your story than from the old one?
last year when I went back to work up there, I would tell both stories. I would say, this is a story that you've probably heard about Waverly Hills, but that story's never made sense to me. Let me tell you what Sarah has told me. And I would tell Sarah's story. And as I would tell it, I'd look around the room and I'd see everybody like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And a lot of people would chime in and say, oh my God, I got the name Sarah. And I got no baby. I got rape. I got this, that. Hello, Shannon. Hello, the Todd. Hello, everybody over there in the chat.
And that makes sense too. The amount of time it took to gather all that evidence,
Yeah,
and having so many other groups get the same stuff, essentially.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That to me is more of a validation for the story that's the real
I
truth.
love it because, like I said, I mean, you know how it is when you get paranormal evidence. You're like, well, we got something that I mean, they said that the guy's name was John that shot himself, at a location, or whatever. And then you get evidence and the guy's saying, my name is Dallas and I was stabbed. And you're like, well, that's not the story. You know what I mean? So you're like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Right.
But
Oh,
when you
yeah.
get 30 plus other teams that are coming to you saying, we got that. That's what we've heard. And so, yeah, like Denise says, I had a friend that used to work with the Jefferson County Coroner's Office. She now works in DC doing something. But she, back when I first started getting Sarah's story, I asked her, I said, is there any way you can go back in the archives and see if there was ever a fetus found in the septic system at Waverly Hills? And she checked. She said, I can't find where there was ever a fetus searched for, much less found at Waverly Hills. So I got nothing. So,
Right. And that takes it back to being a cover-up.
yeah.
Well, back then, abortions were not legal back then, right?
Yeah, they were. And actually, abortions were common for women who had tuberculosis. I mean, they were.
And they had a
performed
doctor on staff who would do those?
That was, just the regular surgeons would do them back then.
Wow.
And there was no record showing that took place, right? No, none of the doctor
No,
records.
a lot of the records of Waverly are, it's very convoluted and it sounds like you're making stuff up or something, but this is a fact. Waverly Hills was a county hospital, basically. It was funded by the Jefferson County Board of Tuberculosis, which they actually used to have one of those back during that epidemic. And so all of the records for Waverly Hills were stored at City Hall downtown. Well, the 1937 flood came through Louisville and flooded downtown Louisville, City Hall. The records were kept in the basement at City Hall.
Oh, wow.
So all those records were lost. So, that's why it's hard getting an accurate number on the deaths and everything else. And, then someone throws, some documentary throws out a number like 63,000 and that sticks.
Wow.
We've been able to, like Denise said in the chat earlier, we've been able to document somewhere close to 12,000
Right.
deaths at Waverly. We think the number might be twice that, but it's hard
not
to tell.
63,000.
No, 63,000. I mean, you think about that. How often people would have to be dying. I mean, we do know that there were times at Waverly where, 24, 25 people a day would die. There were times like that. They
have
the
like a
morgue at Waverly
cemetery.
only has 3 trays in it for bodies.
Oh.
And that was not enough. That would fill up really fast. They would have bodies lined up down the hallway outside the morgue because they didn't have any trays for them. So they converted an old maintenance area into an auxiliary morgue. They put some blocks of ice back in the corner with fans blowing across them and would store bodies in this old maintenance area.
Oh.
And there were times when that room was full. We've seen pictures of that room full.
Jason had a good question. Is there a cemetery down there on the premises?
There's rumors of a cemetery. There's rumors of a mass grave. We can't find it. What we do know is that one of the areas that they assumed was a mass grave was actually a big area, an area that was behind where the old slaughterhouse was, because it was a self-contained community. They raised their own livestock, raised their own fruits and vegetables and everything there. for the patients. You know, all the food that was served at Waverly was raised or grown on the property, and they had a slaughterhouse. Well, a lot of the bones from that slaughterhouse got dumped into a hole. People would find bones and they'd say, "Oh, look, it's a mass grave." No, the slaughterhouse was.
But getting back to the cemetery, does the town cemetery have 63,000 graves? Are there a whole bunch of kids' graves that were only 12, 15 years old? Because if that's not there, then you didn't have 63,000 deaths unless there's a potter's field that they just buried unknown people.
Well, people would come from all over this region to Waverly Hills, and a lot of the bodies. The reason, if you've heard of the body chute at Waverly Hills, it was used to be a maintenance tunnel. They got to where they were having so many deaths at Waverly that rather than have hearse come up to the building and pick them up, where the patients out there getting their fresh air treatments would see hearse after hearse after hearse coming up the hill, that'd be kind of bad for morale. So they started taking the bodies out through that tunnel down to the bottom of the hill and have them picked up down there so that the patients never saw that. But a lot of times those bodies would be loaded onto rail cars and shipped off, somewhere else in the state or even to other states to be buried. So, and Louisville is the biggest city. I have to cut you off
for a minute. Excuse me.
Go
Sorry
ahead.
But I need to thank Carnation for sponsoring our second hour.
Thank you, Carnation.
On Chasing Prophecy. Thank you very much. Back to you, buddy.
Okay. But Louisville's the largest city in Louisville's the largest city in Kentucky. We've got a lot of cemeteries. And Cave Hill Cemetery, very famous cemetery in the paranormal community even, is here. It's like 400 acres. It's a large cemetery. So there's a lot of places for these bodies to be scattered out to. And that's what makes it so hard to get an accurate count and an accurate, this person did die at Waverly. It's hard to say.
Did they have a crematory there?
List Waverly Hills. Others just say Louisville, Kentucky. Or they might even say Pleasure Ridge Park, Kentucky. Or Valley Station, Kentucky. Because, there's little communities within Louisville. And it makes it hard to determine exactly who exactly came from Waverly.
That's seriously really, really interesting.
Did they have like a crematory there that, maybe when people passed, they cremated them to stop the virus that their body had, or like? There's
conflicting stories on that. I can tell you that down at the bottom of the hill, there was a building that had a smokestack and looked for all intents and purposes like a crematorium. But we can't find anyone. Yes, Kenny says my Uncle Lester died there. Indeed, my great Uncle Lester Pack died at Waverly Hills. But we can't find any documentation that it was actually a crematorium or if it was just an incinerator for trash or what it was.
Well, if it was crematorium, do you think that might have been on like a hush, that they were getting rid of the bodies because they had tuberculosis? Like, so they didn't want to scare everybody?
Because there was such a stigma about tuberculosis back. It was like they called it the white plague. It was taboo to be, associated with anyone who had tuberculosis or around them. It was worse than COVID. It's like 4 masks and 15 vaccines later, you might be able to talk to somebody.
I wonder, does TB, when the body dies, does the TB die? Or can it live off the cells for a while? Do you know?
From what I've been told, I'm not a medical expert, but from what I've been told, tuberculosis is a bacteria that can survive for, at the most, 3 hours outside of a living host.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's plenty of time to get a lot of people sick.
Yeah, but it's not there now. So, you can come on up to Waverly once Tina and Charlie get the building back. Come on up. It's safe now.
Definitely.
Well, maybe somebody should say they found the tuberculosis room and it's an issue.
Yeah. There you go.
No more tours.
Maybe we could get.
No,
get
that's
them
a good
shut down
move,
that
John.
way.
That's a real good move there. Yeah.
Everybody come out. All the tour guides come out coughing with a bloody rag.
Oh man! God Almighty! I thought I was crazy and sick.
You're gonna get named in the lawsuit, John. You better watch it.
The mind's going now. It's like I'm writing a story. I'm gonna have a story written for Fate magazine come Monday.
Wow, I'm sorry you're going through all this. I'm sorry that the owners are going through all this. I think it's a bunch of BS.
Yeah,
It is.
rough.
I mean,
It's ridiculous. And I think anybody out there listening to the show tonight, if you have any suggestions for Ernie and to say WaverlyHills.com, please get a hold of them. Send them an email. Help them out. Because I know with this shit happening down there, I ain't going to come down, spend my money. I might come down and have a cup of coffee with you, but that'd be about it.
Come on down and take you over to Bonnie and Clyde's Pizza. We'll have a cold beer and a good pizza.
But no.
Can't threaten me with a good time.
No, all I know is that anybody out there, please help these people out. It's worth saving. And being a paranormal investigator, just like Jason is, and Ernie and a lot of other people. Personally, me, if I had a message to send to all the paranormal teams, stay away from Waverly Hills now until it gets back together, because all you're doing is feeding these people money and nothing's happening, and I'm sorry, but they're assholes down there in Kentucky. Have you talked to Rand Paul at all?
I haven't talked to Rand Paul, but I do have connections with Rand Paul, and I need to get in touch with Rand Paul, see if he can use any of his clout.
I mean, look what he did to the doctor. You know what I mean? He ran him through a ringer. I'm sure Rand Paul could help you out.
He might be able to. And like I say, I do have connections with him. I've talked to him in the past before all this happened, but I might try to reach out and see if he can pull any strings for us. But
hopefully it gets resolved so we can come down in the next couple of years. Or
yeah,
whatever,
man.
investigate, check it
hopefully
out.
this will be resolved in the next couple of months. And there's going to be a huge party on the hill when that happens. It will be blasted all over the internet. And everyone that has been supportive of Save Waverly Hills, Tina and Charlie have already said we're gonna let them know how much we appreciate them by taking care of them. So exactly what that's going to entail, I don't know, but I do know we're going to have a big party on the hill that everybody's welcome to.
Lisa Witt says, "Can you get a hold of Mayor Bike Lane?"
Bike Lane. Lisa Witt, I have no use for him. Our mayor here in Louisville is terrible. But anyway, we'll get away from politics because you're going to piss off half the people that are watching, no matter which side you take. So I'll just stay away from that.
Amen.
But no, we've our main thing is we need funds. There's a GoFundMe that's listed on the website. There's all kinds of merchandise that we can get to you for reasonable prices. We have events coming up. Our next event, I think, is not going to be till Labor Day weekend. We're hoping we'll have the building back by then and we can do the event at the building. Fundraising is what it's all about right now, because we got to be able to pay these attorneys. Because if the only way Charlie can lose is if he runs out of money and can't pay his attorneys. Like I said, they've got a $4 million nest egg that they can keep funding their attorneys. Plus they're getting $1,000 a night minimum from that building. So they're not going to run out of money for their attorneys.
Right.
But Charlie could. And if he does, there's a chance he could lose, because you know how lawsuits work.
Have you looked into lawyers that do pro bono, maybe, that have a heart for Charlie?
Well, that's part of what we're doing right now. We're putting this out to everybody that we can to tell them what's going on, and anyone that can help. Yeah, exactly, Steve. It's about spreading the truth. Anybody that can help in any way, that includes if you're an attorney that would like to help us out pro bono, we could use you right now. We've got not only this lawsuit that we're fighting, we've got the eviction that we're trying to get through. We've got wrongful termination suits for Tina and Charlie and Tina's son, who was also fired by the WHHS, and other former employees that were wrongfully terminated just because they were associated with Tina and Charlie. And then we're going to try to get some restitution for Tina and Charlie for everything they've been through. I mean, their name has been dragged through the mud. They've been told, the world has been told that they were thieves and everything else. So, yeah, like Steve says, anyone you hear that's going to Waverly, let them know what's going on. Like I said, if someone's going, they've already paid for their ticket and their motel rooms, airfare, whatever, and they didn't know what was going on, by all means, go and enjoy the place. But just know that once Tina and Charlie get it back and you come back, it's going to be a whole different ballgame. It's going to be better. Because, I'm hearing from a lot of people. I actually heard from an owner of a very well-known location that last week or the week before last, she had guests at her building that had been to Waverly Hills the night before, and they caught their guide trying to fake evidence.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's no good.
No, it isn't.
No. Now, it was always, just totally understood by everyone at Waverly that, you do that one time, you ruined the whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it
You don't
spreads by
have to
mouth.
do that at Waverly Hills. Waverly Hills is haunted as can be. Okay? I could tell you story after story of hauntings at Waverly. There's no reason to fake anything there. There's some nights when nothing happens. I will say that. But it's like any place else.
You ever come across any what you would consider demonic activity? Anything really bad?
Yeah. I don't know that it's demonic, but there is something. I will say this. All the places I've been investigating over the years, and 25 years I've been involved with this, I might have encountered a handful of cases that might be demonic in all that time. You watch these TV shows and it's like every week there's a demon or somebody's getting possessed or something. And in all the cases I've investigated and locations I've investigated, I might have come across a handful that are potentially demonic. Waverly Hills, there's no reason for anything demonic to be there unless it was brought in there. But the lobby at Waverly Hills has something going on that I don't know how to explain it otherwise. You want to go ahead and talk about this?
That's at the end, I think. But I have a question from Jessica Wolf. Are there people reaching out to the celebrity teams like Ghost Hunters to try to get them involved?
We went to the Las Vegas Paracon. One of the first things we did was we raised enough funds to go to the Las Vegas Paracon back in December. And most every celebrity paranormal investigator was out there. And we tried to talk to everyone that had time to talk to us. And most of them are very sympathetic to our side, but they're under contracts with networks and agents and everything like that. They don't want to get involved.
Wow, man. That's, damn.
Now, we have had a few speak out on our behalf. Like I said, Brandon Alvis, Mustafa Gadalari, they did an event, did not charge us an appearance fee, came to Kentucky and hosted an event for us. There's been several that have shown a great deal of sympathy for our cause and have been helpful. but it would be nice to have more. And it would be nice to have anyone that's got a name in the paranormal community to just avoid booking an event there right now until this is over. Waverly's not going anywhere. And as long as this is going on, they're going to be rubbing a lot of people the wrong way by booking an event there. I'll just put it that way. One of the biggest names in the business just canceled an event last week after all the backlash that he received for booking an event there. Yeah, Heather says it. So anything we can do to get the word out to these people, or people that have big names and are able to spread the word themselves, would be nice to. I've tried to reach out to a few YouTubers. One in particular has an event scheduled for the 18th and 19th at Waverly Hills. And I talked to him via text, and he says it's business. For me, it's a matter of right and wrong. But I'll just leave it alone.
Wow. Hey, Ern, I got my show on next into the night, and my friend Jessica said, can we keep running with this? Are you tired? Would you like to go into my show and still talk about this? Or do you want to bring your wife on?
Well, she's got to go out of town early in the morning, so she'll probably be in bed.
Okay. If you can't, that's all right. We can have you on my show another time.
I'd like to do it another time, but tonight would not be a good night because, like I say, she's got to get up early and get out of town. And the bedroom is right next to the office here. And I'm not quiet.
You're not quiet. Sure. I'll tell you what, we will set something up so you can get on my show.
Yeah, just keep in touch. I mean, message me after the show, whatever. I'd love to set something up for down the road anytime.
Yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out.
Oh, we will.
For when this all
is
settles.
a good friend of Tina's, and Jason has tried to reach out to Tina. Tina's a little bit embarrassed about the whole situation. Plus, she's been really sick, and she's not taking a lot of phone calls right now. But
Heather said Nick Goff just canceled his visit.
He did. He had an event planned for November that once he found out what was going on and heard from Charlie and Tina's army, he decided to cancel his event. We tried talking to WDRB. That's a news channel here in town that yes, we have talked to, and there's a lot that we've said to them, and they're still waiting until we can say more. They want to do a feature story on us when we can say more. We've been on the biggest iHeart radio station in this part of the country, WHAS radio. It's a 50,000 watt clear channel station that has a big voice. We've been on there. We've done everything we can. Well, Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate it.
Boy, this is paranormal unity. And you know what? Eventually, all the paranormal groups, everybody in the paranormal field will back up Waverly Hills. And I'm telling you, they're going to win.
Like I always like to say, the paranormal community is real good when we hear someone, has a tragedy in their family or has a bad illness or is in financial need or something like that. The paranormal community has always come together and helped one another. And they've been real good about it. Well, I see that building, which is just a quarter mile that way from me, as part of that paranormal community, part of the family. And Tina and Charlie, as the faces of Waverly Hills, are definitely part of the paranormal family. Well, they're in need right now. So we all need to come together and help them any way we can.
Well, there's a lot of people that are on, in the chat room. They're, giving, suggestions on where to go. Like Lisa goes, a lot of people listen to 99.7 and 98.9.
Yeah.
And then Jan Acosta is saying
we need to get in there and talk to them. They need to reach out to us, and we'll say what we can. Like I say, there's a lot of things that we can't talk about publicly because of the gag order, but we'll get on there and be happy to at least let people know the basics of what's going on.
And then Jan is saying, as a question, when it happens to another person or venue, who is going to stand up?
Exactly. Because Charlie, there was a point when Charlie he's told me he was ready to give up until he saw the support from the paranormal community. And he's fighting now. And it's all because of everybody out there that's in the chat, everybody that's been following the story and has decided to stand up for what's right. Like I say, this is a matter of right and wrong. It's not a matter of who you like, who you don't like, or it's not a matter of I'm doing it for the building. Like a lot of the people who are guides up there now or work for the WHHS now, they've told me, I'm not trying to get in the middle of the lawsuit. I just care about the building. Well, if you care about the building, that building would not be standing without Tina and Charlie. Right. And they own the damn building. So if you care about that building, you need to be supporting them and not the people trying to steal it from them.
Now, Jan says here to support that Pack Paranormal started.
Well,
what, you guys need to be on there.
We have Denise and I have both put a lot of energy into this and a lot of time. And it's been stressful. Yeah, we've been named in the lawsuit now because of our efforts, but we wouldn't have it any other way, really, because, like I say, it's a matter of doing the right thing, and this is the right thing to do. And I'm going to stand up for the underdog or whoever's being bullied or whatever anytime I can in any situation. But for something like this that has such a personal attachment for me and her.
Right.
We're gonna fight until the end on it. Like she says, we'll fight.
We fight till the death.
Exactly.
And why not? Why not?
It's kind of been our motto from day one.
Our show here, Chasing Prophecy, we do get a lot of listeners too that are worldwide. So it's not just here in Pittsburgh; it's worldwide. And you know what? We're going to help you as much as we can. We got your back.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Truly appreciate it.
Is there any how can people get a hold of you? How they can donate money? The whole 9 yards.
Well, www.savewaverlyhills.com, just like it's on the screen there in front of my beautiful face. And on this wonderful shirt that you can buy at www.savewaverlyhills.com. That's where our store is located. There's a link to the GoFundMe page. There's a PDF file on there, which is the same as what I sent you earlier today.
Right.
That people can read and get a little bit of the backstory about what's going on if they missed part of the show. Any events that we do are advertised on that website. We've got a Facebook page and group called Save Waverly Hills. Everything that we do there, we also share to Pac-Man Paranormal, which is a Facebook page and group that's mine and Denise's team. We also, you can reach me, find me on Facebook, Ernie Pack, ERNIEPACK. If you have any questions, if you have a show yourself and would like for me to be a guest, I'd be more than happy to come on and tell the story on your show as well. Excuse me. I'm easy. I'm open to any help that we can get from anybody.
And we're going to try to do that for you, brother. And we're going to try to do that for you. But going to have to, close up for now. We have some other stuff we got to talk about. But you know what? Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, Ernie, thank you very much.
And we are going to do
I'd be happy to come back anytime and tell you more. We can talk just ghost stories if you want.
Yeah, we can do that.
All the legal mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, right.
So everybody out there, please, 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 if you're a paranormal group, don't go to Waverly until this crap is over with. Okay. Thank you again, Ern. I'll talk
Thanks,
to you
Ernie.
soon.
You have a great night, sir.
Thank you. It was great meeting all y'all. Take care.
Take care. Wow, man.
Oh, John left too.
John. Yeah, John.
John.
John, come back.
John. Was he backstage now?
Yeah. Good night, Heather. Good night, Ronnie.
Oh my! I guess
what a
John
show.
said I'm
Ain't
out
that
too.
ridiculous, dude?
Yeah, for sure.
Damn.
Like I didn't really know much about it or what was going on till that investigation we just had and talking to the other paranormal group.
Right.
And I was like, well, what's going on down there? You can't keep up on, all the events and everything that's going on out there. But now that Ernie was on here and hearing all the stuff that is happening, like that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It's just insane.
People are just like freaking ignorant, man. And it's all about the money.
Oh yeah.
It's all about money, and it just, I don't know, it just like gets me sick and stuff.
Well, that's like somebody commented earlier. Money talks, truth dies.
Mm-hmm.
John,
Hey,
you're back.
John, welcome back.
I don't know what happened. I didn't move.
Oh, stop screaming!
It had to be the ghost.
Wow, turn that down. Jeez.
Is it
Holy
loud?
smokes. Yeah, it's very loud.
Hey, John, tell us about Kecksburg.
All right, hold on a second. I got to turn the volume down.
Yeah.
It's only on like 17. So
Oh, wow.
It was fine earlier. I don't know what you did, but your teleportation back, something got on.
I must have raised my voice.
Yes, you did.
Well, here, we'll use your indoor voice now.
Yeah.
All right.
It is extremely
My
loud.
ears are busted.
Yeah.
So tell us about Kecksburg.
Well, we were supposed to have a guest on tonight, Stan Gordon, and he dropped out, and I was going to let him tell his story of Kecksburg since he was the original investigator, and kind of leave it at that. Maybe I'd mention some other things, but in 2015, I was approached by a nuclear engineer. And we dug into Kecksburg, and we kind of came up with a different story. So I just want to run through a little bit because this weekend coming up is the Kecksburg Festival. But we think we solved the Kecksburg situation, and it was a GE Mark II reentry vehicle, basically a spy satellite that was being launched out of Johnson Island in the South Pacific over Russia. It would get launched, go over Russia, take pictures, and then it would eject its camera system into the Pacific, and they would pick up the camera system. It came down on a parachute, and the capsule would just drop into the ocean. And the problem, though, is that all those capsules had an atomic reactor on it, and they're all at the bottom of the ocean. And I'm talking hundreds of those things, but we really went through this, and every aspect of the Kecksburg we were able to explain. So a guy by the name of Owen Eichler contacted me in 2015. And I'll tell you something else we were able to also explain is in the late 1950s, there was stories of these green fireballs over New Mexico. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not.
No.
But it's in the UFO field, it's kind of a big deal. Dr. La Paz was investigating those. But what we found with this is they were launching these, and it had a copper alloy heat shield, these capsules. And when it hit the atmosphere, it glowed green. So I kind of think we solved the green fireballs over New Mexico in the fact that was the testing of these satellites, and they would glow green. So what was said was seen was that Kecksburg, something came over Canada, and across Michigan, Ohio. And when it got to Pittsburgh, it actually changed direction a little bit so that it didn't hit Pittsburgh. And it was glowing green with like 4-pointed star, 4 points on it. And what we discovered in the research was the glowing green made sense because of the copper alloy heat shield. It had 4 booster rockets on it, so in high altitude it could change direction. And then in low altitude, it actually had a weight and balance system that it would shift, and it off the heavier atmosphere, it would change direction, which was how it changed direction around Pittsburgh. And I found a manual, Air Force manual, that the general had said we could land this within 100 yards of where we wanted to. By remote control, shifting the weight, etc. Using physics. So we explained that part of it. Obviously, I got pictures of the whole thing here, which I tried to send to you, but the file was too big and you couldn't load it up. But there was also at Kecksburg that people saw a blue arcing light in the woods. Well, this thing had an atomic generator on it, and people said they had seen 4 NASA people carrying a large box into the woods, and they had the white radiation suits on. So, my guess is they were carrying a lead box, and what they did was they went into the woods because they had to remove the atomic generator. They couldn't have it leaking fuel all down Route 31 and the Pennsylvania Turnpike because they took it to Wright-Patterson. So I think they went into the woods with a welding, an arc, and they cut into the satellite, and that was the blue arcing that people saw, and they put that atomic generator into a lead box, and they took it. There was a witness, Jerry Betters, a local singer, and he's the only notarized picture. I got it in front of me. It shows an Army truck with this satellite on it, and it has a base to it. So we pulled up a picture of the GE Mark II satellite, and it looks just like it. And I wish you could see this, but I couldn't get it to you through email.
Well, we could probably do that on another show when Stan comes on.
Yeah. So, there were other theories with it, that it was the Russian Cosmos 96. It was the Bell from Nazi Germany, a time machine, and it defied weight and gravity. But, this whole thing about this spy satellite, though, being launched, it was actually kept secret until 1991. And the launch of Kecksburg was December 9th. Well, on December 7th, going through the flight logs, the launches, there was one that immediately on the 7th went offline about a quarter of a mile, and it just went offline to where it wanted to be. So the question was, how long do they stay up in the atmosphere? And there are still some of these GE Mark II reentry vehicles in the atmosphere right now. And if it was high altitude, it would stay up for a couple of days. So we needed to account for 39 hours of this. And the 39 hours fell absolutely within how long it would take from the launch on the 7th to hit Kecksburg on the 9th.
Okay.
Other pictures show markings on the base of the GE satellite, so we think that was what it was. There was also the Unsolved Mysteries show that was they created a replica, and the replica looks exactly like the GE Mark II satellite. And one of the other things on the base, what people described, a couple of witnesses, was what turned out to be a military symbol. It was a star on it. So, you're kind of saying if it was an alien, a 5-pointed star. What would a 5-pointed star with a circle in the middle be doing on an alien craft? And when you go back and you look at symbols used by the Army and Air Force back then, they used that 5-pointed star with the circle in the middle. So I think that kind of nails it, that it was military is what it was. Some of the descriptions that this thing was 10 feet tall and put on a flatbed. Well, flatbeds back then were only 7 feet wide. So it probably wasn't 10 feet tall. And there were some descriptions that kind of said that it wasn't very big on the flatbed. So, I kind of think that we couldn't let the world know, couldn't let Russia know we were spying on them, because what happened was the U-2 spy plane preceded this capsule, and they captured Gary Powers, right? So what we did then after the U-2 was we were launching these satellites, and we couldn't let it get out that we were doing this. So this was all kept quiet, and of course you had the radiation leak also. So really the choices, Project Blue Book never investigated Kecksburg. Kecksburg in the UFO field is considered probably the top 5, maybe the 5th most important or most well-known UFO case. But yet Project Blue Book in 1969 never bothered to investigate it. That doesn't make sense. Some people say it's a meteor. It was a UFO. It was the Russian Cosmos 96 satellite, or was the Nazi Bell. And we added to that list it was actually a U.S. spy satellite. And one of the interesting things was when we put this together, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette printed the story. It was front page in the living section, not the front page of the paper. The Tribune Review in Westmoreland County here refused to print it because they said it would hurt the Kecksburg Fire Department's fundraising. So they didn't want the truth. They just wanted to go along with the urban legend. But the reporter from the Post-Gazette sent it to a military website, I think it was Stars and Stripes, and they put it on the front page of the military website. Mm-hmm. And from that, we were able to find the guy in charge of the Army operation there in Kecksburg. So the documentation at the time said only like 4 people showed up. But the witnesses said there were at least 25 Army there, 4 NASA, a couple of Air Force people. So it proves at least that they lied about how many people had shown up. So we were able to find Gordon H. Rawson. He was the Army Lieutenant Colonel in charge of the Kecksburg investigation. And I have his picture. So, Unsolved Mysteries, all the people that looked into this never found out anything about the military people there. And we were able to identify the person that headed up the investigation. And he said he was told it was a Soviet satellite that crashed there. But that doesn't mean that they told him the truth about what it was, because they didn't want it to get out that we were spying on Russia. But, a bigger mystery, I think, to the whole thing was that the reporter, John Murphy, when he was ready to break the story, he was visited by 2 men in suits that they say were men in black, and took a lot of his notes and pictures and told him what story to tell. And then he died. He got hit by a car in California, and that seemed very suspicious. But the other guy, Jerry Betters, who made the only drawing of it, he got hit also by a truck in Connellsville and killed. So what's the odds of 2 major witnesses getting run over and taken out?
Coincidental.
Very coincidental. So, this is a good story that something did happen at Kecksburg. I'm not saying that Kecksburg didn't happen. It did happen. But what was it? Was it an alien? And in this field, these stories, when you dig into them, they become these urban legends. And next thing you know, there were stories of Kecksburg where it opened up and a hand came out, and it was a 3-fingered hand that came out of the capsule. That never happened. And there's a guy at Wright-Patterson delivering bricks, and he saw an alien on a gurney, but he was able to walk in, deliver his bricks, go into this high security area, see the capsule, which he said was 10, 12 feet tall, and it wasn't, and an alien on a gurney. And yet he walked out, and the guard told him, "Don't you ever say anything about this." Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, that guy would have ended up in the desert somewhere in Las Vegas, where they threatened the Roswell witnesses. But there's so much of it got out of, it gets embellished and becomes an urban legend. So, hey, look, I like Kecksburg. I was a speaker down in Kecksburg for a lot of years until Owen Eichler and I posted our explanation that Kecksburg was a satellite, and I don't get invited back to speak there anymore. So I just add Kecksburg to my list of people.
You have that a lot.
Yeah, they get added to my list of people who are not interested in the truth. But, hey, I love a good story, and Kecksburg's a good story.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting close to closing up, and I know we only gave you half hour, but the other day.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. I can go into a little more, but that was basically the gist of it.
Any final thoughts, Jason?
Oh, just ready for more investigations.
Yes.
Let me add to my website, johnventry.com, and I've written 10 books. The Kecksburg stuff is all out there. So if you go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble, my 10 books and 3 research papers are out there. I also wrote the first book on COVID. That's out there. And so I wrote a book on slavery. But that book on COVID, I published March 15th. We shut down on March 11th. And there's a whole storyline behind that, how Amazon took it down for 6 months.
Wow. Well, everybody, thank you for listening into the show tonight. It was a great show. We'll hopefully Jenny will be back in a couple of weeks. But until then, I want to say good night, everybody.
Thanks for joining Torture Tuesday.
Yes, and I will talk to you later.
All right,
Have
good
a good
show.
night, everybody. Good show.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Hey, brother.
And we're still live.